The morning light over Helios Academy carried no warmth. The great spires of the campus gleamed like polished steel, but the air around the classrooms was thick with quiet tension. Whispers ran from corridor to corridor quick, nervous voices that darted away the moment a teacher passed. Students huddled in small clusters, their eyes glancing toward the main gates, as if expecting something dangerous to arrive at any moment. For weeks, the academy had been buzzing with rumors. The council had approved a transfer student, which in itself was not unusual, but this one was different. The story said he wasn't just from another star system, he was from a death world, Earth. Even the name made some students shiver. Deathworlders were rare. They came from planets so hostile that simply surviving childhood meant you were stronger, faster, and more dangerous than almost anyone else in the galaxy. It was said that every predator on Earth was lethal, that the storms there could tear cities apart. The humans who lived there were born fighters. The tension deepened when the whispers reached the most dangerous student in the academy, Rax Vorn. He was a trained killer. Everyone knew it. His people had perfected combat over centuries, turning their young into weapons before they reached adulthood. Rax had been expelled from 2 military academies for excessive force. He carried himself like someone who had never lost a fight. When the class gathered that morning, the room was electric. The wide windows let in a pale beam of light that sliced across the desks, catching dust motes in the air. Students avoided the 2 empty seats. One belonged to Rax, seated lazily with a faint smirk, and the other was for the newcomer. The door slid open. He wasn't what they expected. The human was tall, yes, but not bulky. His dark hair was a little messy, his uniform neat but casual, and there was a strange calm in his eyes, not the cold stare of a soldier, but something quieter, like he was seeing everything at once and calculating where it all fit. He walked to the empty desk without hesitation, ignoring the way the room seemed to shrink around him. "Class," the instructor said, voice tight. "This is Aaron Holt. He's joining us from Earth. I expect you to treat him with the same respect you give any other student." A few stifled laughs broke the silence. Respect. In this place, respect was earned through strength. Rax Vorn was already watching him like a predator studying prey. Aaron sat down slowly, hands folded. On the desk, his eyes met Rax's for a single moment. In that moment, something shifted. It wasn't a glare, it wasn't aggression, but there was a weight in that gaze that made even the killer pause. The lesson began, but no one listened. Air was tight, the whispers sharper. Rax leaned back, stretching his claws on the edge of his desk, tapping them in a rhythm only he seemed to understand. Every so often, his eyes drifted toward the human. Halfway through the lesson, Rax decided to speak. "So," Earthy said loudly, interrupting the instructor. "I hear your kind wrestles monsters for sport. That true?" Aaron looked up. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "Only the big ones." A few students laughed nervously, unsure if it was a joke. Rax's smirk widened. "Maybe you'll show me sometime."
At
The human didn't blink. "Maybe I will." Words. It was the way Aaron said them, flat, almost casual, but with an undercurrent that made it sound less like an offer and more like a quiet promise. When the break came, students spilled into the hall, eager to get away from the tension. In the room, but Rax didn't leave, and neither did Aaron. They stayed at their desks. The space between them charged like a storm about to break. No one could have guessed then what would happen next or how this single morning would be remembered across the academy for years to come. But the first warning signs were already there, because the trained killer was watching the inhuman, and the human was smiling. The air in the classroom after the break felt heavier, as if every breath carried the weight of what was about to happen. Students returned to their seats slowly, their voices low, their eyes flicking toward the 2 figures who had not moved since the bell. Aaron sat with quiet stillness, his hands folded loosely on the desk, posture relaxed, but eyes alert. Rax lounged back in his chair, but there was something sharper in his expression now, like a predator deciding whether to pounce. The instructor resumed the lesson. But even he seemed to sense the charged atmosphere. His words came faster, his eyes darting toward the back row where Aaron and Rax sat. Almost as if he feared whatever unspoken challenge was building there. It didn't take long. Halfway through a complex equation on the holoboard, Rax spoke again. His tone casual, but loud enough for the whole class to hear. "So, Holt," he said, dragging out the name, "your people fight storms, animals, each other. Sounds fun, but I hear Deathworlders aren't so good when they're not on their own turf." Aaron didn't look up from his notes. "It's an interesting theory." Rax's eyes narrowed. "Care to test it?" The class went silent. Even the instructor froze. On Helios, a test didn't mean an arm wrestle or a friendly spar. It meant the dueling Floran official combat space, where fights were allowed under the Academy's rules. The problem was, fights with Rax rarely ended clean. The instructor started to intervene. But Aaron looked up, his calm gaze meeting Rax's. "Sure, why not?" That single line hit the room like a shockwave. Students turned in their seats, exchanging wide-eyed looks. No one volunteered to fight Rax. No one. The instructor's voice was sharp now. This is not the time or place, but it was too late. The challenge had been made, and the acceptance was public. By the Academy's own traditions, the duel was set. After class, on the floor, the rest of the lesson passed in a blur. The other students weren't listening to the equations anymore. They were calculating the odds. Some whispered that Aaron wouldn't last a minute. Others said maybe he'd surprise them, but no one truly believed it. This was Rax Vorn, the most dangerous fighter in the school. And his opponent was just a transfer student from a planet most had only heard of in scary campfire stories. When the final bell rang, the classroom emptied fast. Word spread through the halls like wildfire. Deathworlder versus Rax. By the time Aaron and Rax walked toward the dueling floor, half the school was already there, the air filled with a buzzing mix of excitement and dread. The dueling floor was a wide circular arena with a polished metal surface and tall safety barriers. It was built for training matches. With automated med drones on standby for when not if someone got hurt, Aaron stepped inside first. He moved with the same unhurried calm he'd shown in class. Glancing briefly around the arena before looking back at Rax, the human's stance wasn't aggressive. If anything, it looked like he was simply standing there. Rax entered next, his long strides radiating confidence. His claws flexed once, gleaming under the arena lights. He gave the human a slow smile. "Don't worry, I'll make it quick." Aaron tilted his head slightly. "That's kind of you." The match start signal pulsed across the floor. Rax moved first fast. His kind was known for explosive speed, and he crossed the distance between them in a blur, claws slicing through the air. The crowd gasped. The strike was aimed at Aaron's neck, but it never landed. Aaron shifted just enough for the claws to pass harmlessly by, his body moving with a precision that made it look effortless. Before Rax could recover, Aaron's hand shot out, gripping his opponent's wrist. The motion was simple, almost gentle, but Rax's entire body froze, his eyes widening in shock. The crowd murmured, confused. They hadn't even seen what happened. Aaron released him, stepping back without a word. Rax's expression twisted from surprise to fury. This time he came in harder, faster, a flurry of strikes meant to overwhelm. The air filled with the sound of claws slicing metal as Rax's blows missed again and again. Each one dodged by inches, and through it all, the human just smiled. The fight wasn't over yet, but the crowd could feel it. The balance of power had shifted. It was no longer Rax who was in control. The classroom, the academy, and maybe even the entire planet was about to learn something important about Deathworlders. And it started with this smile. The arena was no longer just a training space, it was a stage, and every eye was locked on the two figures inside. The hum of the protective barrier seemed louder now, a low electric growl that made the air feel charged. Rax circled Aaron, his movements tighter now, less reckless, but still brimming with lethal intent. He'd realized something: this human wasn't prey. That made him dangerous. And in Rax's world, danger was something you crushed quickly. "You think dodging makes you strong?" Rax's voice was low, his breath coming faster. "I've broken warriors who fought harder than you. Aaron's tone was light, almost casual. "You're not fighting harder, you're just fighting louder." It was a line that hit harder than a punch, and the crowd reacted a ripple of laughter. In surprise, Rax's eyes darkened. He lunged again, but this time he faked left and came in from the right, a clawed hand aimed at Aaron's ribs. The human didn't step back, he stepped forward, sliding inside the arc of the strike. His hand snapped up, catching Rax's elbow, and in a single smooth motion, he used the alien's momentum to twist him sideways. The crowd gasped as Rax stumbled. Forced off balance for the first time anyone could remember, Aaron didn't attack. He simply let go. It was more insulting than a strike. Rax's teeth bared in a snarl. Enough games. His voice echoed in the arena, and the lights reflected off the sheen of sweat beginning to form on his brow. He came in like a storm every move, a blur of speed and violence. Barrier sensors screamed as claws scraped inches from Aaron's skin, each near miss sending sparks into the air. The audience could barely follow the motion, but somehow, impossibly, Aaron was always just out of reach, always one step ahead. Then, in the middle of the chaos, Aaron moved. One step. One strike. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't brutal. It was precise, a short, sharp punch to Rax's midsection, perfectly timed between breaths. The alien froze, the air driven from his lungs. His eyes wide in shock. The sound of impact was almost too small for such a large reaction, but the crowd felt it. They heard it in the silence that followed. Aaron stepped back again, giving Rax space to breathe. "You should stop now," he said quietly. To everyone's shock, Rax hesitated. This was the killer, the Academy's undefeated champion, and he hesitated, but pride is heavier than fear. Rax straightened, growling low in his throat. "Not finished." The human nodded once. "Your choice." When Rax moved again, there was desperation in it, and Aaron was ready. What happened next would be replayed in Academy archives for years, sequenced so fast that many would doubt it was real. 3 moves. That's all it took. First, Aaron stepped into Rax's strike, deflecting the claws with a bare hand. Second, he pivoted, hooking Rax's leg with his own. Third, with a twist of his body, he sent the alien crashing to the floor so hard the sound echoed through the arena. Rax didn't. "Get up." The Madrones rushed in, scanning, stabilizing. The crowd erupted, half in shock, half in awe. Whispers tore through the stands. The Deathworlder won. Aaron didn't raise his fists or shout in victory. He just stepped out of the arena, calm as if he'd just finished a light exercise. As he passed the crowd, a few caught the faintest shift in his eyes, cold. Calculating, as if he'd just sent a message, and maybe he had, because this wasn't just a fight, it was a warning. Whispers spread through the Academy like fire through dry grass. By the next morning, every corridor, every cafeteria table, every training bay echoed with fragments of the same story, how the Deathworlder had taken down Rax. The undefeated killer, in less than a minute of real fighting, the official match. Recording was locked under security clearance, but that didn't stop grainy footage from leaking. Students huddled over their wristcombs, replaying the slow-motion capture of Aaron's final 3 moves. In some clips, the crowd's gasps almost drowned out the impact. To most, it was thrilling. To a few, it was terrifying. Some saw Aaron as a hero, someone who'd stood up to the Academy's bully and won without cruelty. Others saw him as a threat, something unpredictable, something dangerous to be watched. But it wasn't just the students who were talking. Up in the staff wing, behind soundproof doors, the instructors met in a rare closed session. Commander Vrelk stood at the head of the table, his mandibles tight with frustration. The fight should never have happened. Rax was supposed to be a training deterrent, not a combat challenge. "It wasn't planned," Instructor Malin said, folding her forearms across her chest. Rax pushed for it. The human accepted. Simple as that. Simple. Vrelk leaned forward. Rax is a Class 3 predator. The human shouldn't have lasted 10 seconds. Malin's voice was calm but firm. And yet he did. In fact, he didn't just last, he controlled the fight from start to finish. There was silence for a moment, broken only by the faint hum of the overhead lights. One of the older instructors, whose skin was patterned with the scars of old wars, finally spoke. "We need to find out exactly what kind of training this human has had. No cadet fights like that unless they've seen real battle." Down in the lower levels, Aaron sat alone in the combat lounge, a cup of something steaming in his hand. He could feel the stares, the sideways glances. No one came too close, but no one could look away either. It was the same in every Predator's den. When someone challenged the Alpha and won, the entire hierarchy shifted. A shadow fell over him. He looked up to see a tall figure in a black training suit, her posture relaxed, but her eyes sharp. "You fought well," she said, voice low. Rax was a brute, but he wasn't slow. "Not many can do what you did." Aaron gave a small shrug. "Just got lucky." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she could smell the lie. "Luck doesn't move like that. My name's Selra. If you're smart, you'll watch your back." Rax has friends. They're not the forgiving type. She turned to leave, but paused. "And for what it's worth, I don't think you're here just to learn." Aaron said nothing, but his gaze followed her until she was gone. That night, as the academy's lights dimmed and most cadets retreated to their quarters, 3 shadowed figures moved through the maintenance corridors. They carried no training weapons. Their claws and blades were sharp enough. They didn't make it to Aaron's room. The cameras caught nothing but static. And the next morning, those same 3 were found unconscious in the hydroponics bay, each one neatly restrained with their own belts and straps. No one could prove it was Aaron, but in the Academy's Predator hierarchy, proof wasn't necessary. The message was clear: Axe's defeat. It wasn't an accident. The human knew exactly what he was doing. By the time the sun lamps of the Orbital Academy cycled into their false dawn, Aaron's name was no longer just a whisper, it was a weight that pressed down on the entire cadet corps. Rumors had evolved into theories, and theories into wild legends. Some said he was a convict sent here as punishment. Others swore he was an assassin in disguise, planted to test the Academy's defenses. A few insisted he wasn't even from a human military. They claimed he was something worse, something that even humans didn't talk about. In the command wing, the instructors had stopped debating and started investigating. Commander Vrelk paced in front of a large holodisplay, a list of encrypted files hovering in the air. "Every official record we have on this Aaron Cole ends at the age of 18, he said. "After that, nothing. No deployments, no assignments, no commendations, nothing that explains what we've seen." "That's not a blank file," Instructor Mallon said. "That's a scrub file. Someone erased it." One of the data officers, a quiet, insectoid cadet who had been drafted into assisting, tilted her head. "Erased and replaced with decoys. Whoever did it didn't just hide the truth. They built a false trail so convincing it would fool most security scans." Relk's mandibles clicked, and someone wanted him here. The question is, why? The staff tore apart digital records. Aaron was in the simulator bay, facing a wall of holographic drones that fired pulses of blue energy at him in unpredictable patterns. His movements were fluid, economical, no wasted motion, no unnecessary flair. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was training like a man who knew exactly what might come for him, and soon. From the observation deck above, Selra watched. In silence, she had seen enough fighters to know the difference between a cadet learning the ropes and a soldier keeping his edge sharp. Aaron wasn't just strong, he was prepared. And that, more than anything, was dangerous. Halfway through the morning, the Academy's internal comms chimed with a priority alert. All senior cadets were to report to the main auditorium. The message gave no details, but the tension in the halls told everyone this wasn't a drill. When they gathered, Commander Vrelk stood at the podium, his voice carrying through the chamber. "Yes. 3 cadets attempted an unsanctioned assault on one of your peers. This was not training. It was a coward's act, and it will not be tolerated." His gaze swept the room, pausing just long enough on Aaron to make the point without saying his name. "But that's not all," Vrelk continued. "We have reason to believe there may be external interests watching this academy. Some of you were brought here not just to train, but to be tested. And in the days ahead, that test we'll begin in earnest." The murmur that swept through the room was uneasy, even fearful. Aaron didn't flinch. Later, in the privacy of his quarters, he opened a small case hidden inside the wall paneling. Inside lay a device no cadet was supposed to have: a secure communicator linked to a network far beyond the Academy's jurisdiction. He activated it, and a faint, distorted voice filled the room. "Status?" it asked. Aaron's reply was calm, controlled, observed, engaged. "They're watching me now." The voice was silent for a moment before it said, "Then it's time to let them see what a Deathworlder really is." The Academy's artificial sky was clear and calm that morning, but deep beneath the calm, the air thrummed with the low electric hum of incoming trouble. At first, no one noticed. Cadets walked. The mess halls smelled of synth protein pancakes, and the training yards echoed with the usual bark of drill sergeants. But those who paid attention, those who could feel the shift, knew something was about to break. Aaron felt it before anyone else. Not a sound, not a vibration, just that subtle change in pressure that soldiers on Deathworlds learned to trust. He sat in the simulator lounge, eyes half closed, waiting. The first alarm shattered the stillness. Not the sharp, rehearsed training tone. This one was deeper, harsher, real. The kind of sound that froze the blood of anyone who had ever been in an actual war zone. The halls erupted into chaos. Cadets ran for their lockers, some fumbling to remember protocols, others moving with the crisp precision of soldiers ready for deployment. Overhead, the Academy's AI voice cut through the panic. "Unidentified vessels have breached station perimeter. All personnel prepare for immediate lockdown." From the observation towers, flashes of light streaked across the void. Ships, small, fast, and bristling with weapons, were weaving through the station's defenses like hunting predators in the command wing. Commander Vrelk's voice was sharp and clipped. "Shields at maximum. Get the interceptor squadrons into the air." But even as orders flew, Selra knew something was wrong. These ships weren't here to test the Academy's defenses. They were here for someone. She turned, scanning the crowd of cadets gathering in the staging area. Her eyes locked on Aaron. He wasn't looking at the battle screens. He was watching the entry points, measuring distances, calculating responses. He didn't look afraid. He looked ready. The first explosion shook the Academy to its core. The floor trembled, the lights flickered, and the sound of distant hull-breach sirens wailed through the corridors. An armed squad of intruders forced their way in black armor, masked faces, weapons humming with lethal energy. Their leaders' voice carried through the chaos. "Step aside, we want the human." Every head turned toward Aaron. The intruders moved fast, but Aaron moved faster. One moment he was standing with the cadets, the next he was a blur of motion, intercepting the first attacker with a strike so fast the armored soldier didn't even fire before collapsing. Panic exploded around them. Cadets scattered. Some fought, most didn't. Selra ducked behind a barricade, watching in disbelief as Aaron tore through the enemy squad. His movements were not wild or showy. They were calculated, surgical. Every blow ended a fight. Every step kept him alive. The intruders regrouped, trying to box him in. One of them shouted into a comlink, "We have him contained." They didn't. Aaron slammed into them like a storm, ripping a rifle from one, crushing another against the wall. With enough force to dent the plating, more intruders flooded the hall. But now the Academy's own security forces were joining the fight. The battle raged in close quarters, energy bolts sizzling past. Hand-to-hand combat in narrow spaces, alarms blaring. Through it all, Aaron's voice cut through, calm and unshaken. "You picked the wrong Deathworlder." It ended as quickly as it began. The surviving intruders retreated, their ships peeling away into the void. The Academy lay battered but intact in the command chamber. Relk stared at Aaron, his expression a mixture of suspicion and awe. "You just saved this station, but you also brought this fight here." Aaron didn't answer. He looked out the viewport at the retreating ships, his jaw set. Whoever sent them would try again, and next time, they wouldn't be hunting the Academy. They'd be hunting him.